My name is David Craig, and I recently wrote a book called The Great European Rip-Off about the horrible things happening in the European Union. A year ago, I was a Euro virgin. I knew nothing at all about the EU. I didn't care, and when anybody talked about it, my eyes would glaze over in lack of interest. But after writing a book last year about how the British government was wasting over £1 trillion of our money, I was asked to go over and look at Brussels and see what I thought of what's happening there. I was concerned when I went over there because I had to deliver an 85,000 word book in just 3 months, so I was worried I would be able to find enough material. I needn't have worried. There's so much corruption, stupidity, incompetence and lack of democracy in Brussels, there was no shortage of material to write about. The kind of things I looked at were our MEPs, our members of the European Parliament. Now, you may think that most of our MPs at Westminster are crooks, but their stealing and thieving is petty cash compared to what's happening in the European Union. Most Euro MPs get about £200,000 a year to pay for staff. Most of them put most of this money into their pockets. They don't pay for the staff. You can become a millionaire by just being a Euro MP for 5 years, 1 5-year period. It is the easiest way to make money today. I looked at the Commission. These are the 27 unelected bureaucrats who make 80% of British law, or 80% of all the laws in Europe. Now, if these people were the best, most talented administrators in Europe, that would be fine. But they're not. Most of them are a bunch of third-rate has-beens, or people who have such dodgy pasts that they can no longer get a job in their in their own countries, so they have to be sent to Brussels to keep them out of the way. It's laughable. The Commissioner responsible for justice is a convicted criminal, convicted for €2 million embezzlement, though later pardoned by the French president. The Commissioner responsible for anti-fraud was investigated for 4 years for depositing $10 million into a Swiss bank account, which disappeared. And then from Britain, we have our very own Peter Mandelson, a man who seems to have to resign rather frequently whenever he comes into contact with other people's money. It's laughable. I looked at the lack of democracy in the EU. Last year, the Irish voted no to the Lisbon Treaty. They needn't have bothered. 2 months before the Irish vote, there was a vote in the European Parliament where they decided they would ignore the result of the Irish vote. So the Irish people, lovely people, but they didn't need to waste their time going out and voting. Why bother? The European Parliament had already decided to ignore what the people wanted. Finally, I looked at the EU's main policies, the Common Agricultural Policy. The aim of the Common Agricultural Policy is to give a decent standard of living for European farmers. Of the €58 billion a year that gets spent, about 50 billion of that goes into the pockets of the biggest food companies and the richest landowners in Europe, leaving virtually nothing for ordinary farmers. The Common Fisheries Policy, a disaster. On the European Union website it says it's a huge success, but I got hold of a document by the Fisheries Commissioner which said to his other commissioners, a confidential document, said it was a disaster. Every European Union policy is overcomplicated, badly managed, and ends up in failure. But because the bureaucrats can never admit they're wrong, they just continue with these policies. This has to be stopped. The Lisbon Treaty is a disaster for Europe. It takes and centralizes power with 27 unelected people in Brussels. You have to go out and vote on June the 4th. Brussels is not listening. You have to send a message to Brussels that we are tired of being taken for granted. You have to go out, you have to vote, please, and please vote Libertas.